So what do veterinarians and Uber drivers have in common? One of the things that a slogan, a saying that you might hear from Uber drivers, other drivers is like, you got to read the room. Let me see if I can explain it this way. Okay, there are doctors and there are veterinarians, and doctors mean human doctors because veterinarians are vet doctors too, right? I think they are. Well, okay, a human doctor, a doctor works on humans and they get really specialized. They focus on feet or they focus on, brain surgery or something like that. Or the veterinarian has to know about feet and claws, but they also work on, things like dogs and cats and pet fish and pet snakes and a wide variety of animals, whereas one species versus a lot of species. I think that's what it's like being an Uber driver. Just today, I gave a businessman, financial investor kind of guy a ride, a young lady who's a sales rep a ride, a Chinese woman who was learning English. I gave her a ride. I gave 15, 16 rides today. A guy who's traveling to another, I gave a lot of airport rides today. An older couple going on a cruise. It doesn't really matter. My point is each one of them entered my car in a different state, in a different mindset, going to or from different places for a variety of reasons. And I think they all need to be treated differently, kind of like a veterinarian. Like we're humans. Yeah, all humans are different. We need to give them medicine in a different way. But like doctors can be very specialized in that one species, and we're a veterinarian. And it's a kind of a weak analogy. But my point to the humans out there, the drivers, confusing myself a little bit. But my point to you as a driver, as a service worker, is to think about that person or the people in your car is each of them individuals, unique and different, and have empathy toward them. Because that's what service workers do. If we treated them all the same, we may or may not get 5 stars. We may or may not get tips. And by being a good listener, you can kind of understand what their needs are. One of the things that a slogan, a saying that you might hear from Uber drivers, other drivers is like, you got to read the room. And that's kind of what I'm getting at here. Now, read the room is a very vague way of saying it. What I want to do is kind of give you some tangible ways to actually read the room. The first thing is understanding where you're picking people up. So if you're picking somebody up at a house and taking them to the airport, it's different than picking somebody up at a bar and taking them home. So your pickup and drop off locations help you understand and kind of analyze the situation that way. If you pick up somebody at work, like my last ride, and I was taking her home, the last thing she probably wants to talk about is work, right? So there's that. So pick up and drop off locations matter a lot to reading the room. The second thing is what or who do they have with them? So a good example is earbuds. If you pull up and you see your passenger with earbuds in or headphones on, they definitely probably don't want to talk, right? They just want to sit back and enjoy the ride with their headphones on. Whereas if you ever pick up probably the most fun ride to do would be like a bridal shower. There's 4 girls, women, one of them with a tiara, right? The princess crown kind of thing. They got sashes like my seatbelt here. That's a totally different read the room. So you got to treat each situation different. The bridal shower is kind of like, hey, do you guys want something on the radio? Let's do this. Who's getting married? What's going on? Have a good time. Whereas the person with headphones on, they just want probably a quiet ride. So it's reading the room that way. Another way to read the room is ask good questions about where they're going and why they're going and what they're doing, something like that. There's a balance here too, because we don't want to cross this line of appropriate. Like a good example is if you're taking somebody to a hospital, you don't want to say, what's wrong? Because y- y- that implies that something's wrong. Maybe they work at the hospital. Who knows? So, so there's just a challenge. But if you ask a good question with the real intent to not pry and prod, but to understand, to get context, then that's also reading the room. So a good example would be like if you pick up somebody at a bar, you might ask them, and I'm making it up off the top of my head. You might say something like, "Hey, how was your night? Are you done for the night?" Is a probably more likely question I would ask. Are you done for the night? Because the assumption is whether they're working at the bar or they've been out partying, they may or may not be done for the night. But asking if they're done for the night gives them an opportunity to just say, "Oh yeah, I closed up the bar. I'm shutting everything down. It was a good night." Okay, there's that. Or there's somebody might say, "No, we're going back to my place to watch the game." So the bar night is not over. And that's just a couple of examples, 3 ways you can read the room. Number one, understand pickup and drop off locations. And obviously the more that you drive, the more that you're going to understand, but it's not that hard. Number two is when you see them before they get into the car, try to understand the situation. A good example is the Chinese woman that I picked up today. Lovely, lovely woman. I was picking her up at Bosie's, and I was taking her to a temp work place. I didn't know she was Chinese until I saw her come out. I mean, the name it looked Chinese, but I wasn't really sure. But when I saw her walk into me, she was roughly my age. And you can start to read the room. There's context going on with that. And so when she got in the car, she didn't speak English really well, but she was proud of her English because she said she just finished getting, her GED and she was practicing her English. And so, hey, so why are we going to this temp place? And I gave her a chance to describe the situation. Well, by passing the GED, this test, she was able to then go on to apply for this job that she wanted to apply. So she was really proud of that. And I got a tip. Now, the goal is not to get a tip, not to juice money out of people, not to play them. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying having empathy and having a real desire to understand the people that are in your car. And I know there's a lot of drivers out there that are going to be like, "Levi, just shut up and drive." And I don't mind having a quiet passenger. I'm not saying we have to talk, but this is my car. I mean, this is my family car. My wife sits here a lot of the times. My kids sit in here. My granddaughter sits in here. It's just mine, and it's an intimate space. And I can't just pretend I'm a robot and they're a robot, and we are in public transportation. This is not a bus. This is a very private, small space. And if anything, I just want to make sure that they're not so inebriated that they can't handle themselves. So by talking to the passenger, getting a sense of who they are they going to throw up in my car? It's kind of that. Are they potentially going to harm me? By just a brief introduction and kind of conversation, we're good. And then, quite frankly, am I picking up the right person going to the right place? I mean, that's not too much of a worry, but the first minute, if I can see where I'm picking them up and where I'm dropping them off, if I can observe them coming to the vehicle, and then kind of get a sense of who they are, what they're about, what's going on, then that's reading the room and letting the ride progress. And yeah, I would say about half of my passengers, we sit here in peace and quiet. Nothing happens. I drop them off, have a lovely day. But about half my passengers want to talk to me about God knows what, the Tesla or the weather. And that's probably a different podcast episode for a different day, how to handle those conversations. But I'll give you my last piece of quick advice here. Ask more questions, then talk. That's it. If you can ask more questions, be genuinely curious about who people are, why they're doing what they're doing, what they're excited about, what they're passionate about, what matters to them, that genuinely leads to a more deeper, meaningful conversation. I'm not saying they're going to be your best friend or anything like that, but you're going to learn something, and then you're probably going to get a tip, a nice rating. And just today's the day of bragging. I do have to say, the reason why this came to my mind is just how awesome today was. I got a tip on, I believe, out of, oh my gosh, I did 12, or not, this week I've done 22 rides, 21 on Uber and 1 on Lyft, and I've gotten 17 tips. So I've made $135 in tips, over $400 in fares. Just not just, there's some weeks I don't get tips, so I'm not guaranteeing you a tip. I'm not saying you need to go juice people for tips. What I'm saying is you are not a robot. You're not robo-taxi. You're not a Waymo. You're a human, and they're in your personal car. And by having, I don't know, being human, being a nice person, reading the room, doing those 3 things, asking questions, you're going to provide an experience that the passenger is going to like and enjoy, and it's going to benefit you. Hey, my name is Levi. This is the Daily Drive. I created the Tip You in the App channel for drivers and passengers and just anybody else to talk about stories and my experiences as an Uber driver. I hope if you're a driver that you're making money, that you're staying safe, healthy, and quite frankly, enjoying the ride. And for 2025, I'm hoping you drive your way, because you're going to get a lot of advice. Even maybe that was bad advice from me right there. And I hope you take bits and pieces of it and drive your way. Be well, be safe.